throughout their history. It is one of these rituals which helps to unlock the mysteries behind the rock paintings. The Bushman trance or curing dance begins as the sun goes down. The women sit by the fire, clapping and singing medicine songs. In front of them dance the men, their pounding feet forming furrows in the earth. Among the dancers are medicine men, or shamans, the spiritual leaders of the group. Any man can be a shaman if he can perfect the right techniques in the dance. The rhythms of the music have a powerful hypnotic effect, and as the dance wears on, the experienced shaman will enter a state of trance. He starts to shiver and sweat. It is in trance that contact with the spirit world is made. Trance can become so deep that the shaman collapses and will need assistance from other dancers to bring him round. He seems almost to swim his way back to a more controlled state. From the spirit world, the shaman taps a source of supernatural energy, a curing power which is transmitted through his hands. The shaman's sweat is said to contain supernatural power. The trance dance is a unifying force for the community and is the central religious experience of all Bushmen.
Ancient mysteries will...
Every aspect of the trance dance can be found represented in the rock paintings. Until recently, men would always wear rattles on their legs. They danced holding fly whisks. trancing postures have remained unchanged. The experiences of trance are also depicted. A shaman today will talk of how his body feels stretched, elongated. His spirit soars out of his head towards the supernatural world. In this world, he gains his magical energy from powerful creatures. He feels himself transformed into an animal.
Now, after we got to know some of the details of the beliefs concerning the trance dance from the Kalahari Bushmen, we were able to interpret this painting in considerable detail. First of all, the figure in the center, in the bending forward posture, is in the sort of position that many medicine men adopt when they're asking God to put more or power into their spines so that it will boil up into their heads and enable them to go into trance. Now, one of the sources of this power is the eland itself. And this eland is in a dying position. Its front legs are giving way under its weight. Its head is lowered and its neck muscles have relaxed so that its head is swinging towards the position from which we're viewing it. And it has hair standing on end all over its body. Now, the man who's holding the eland's tail has a number of features in common with the eland. He also has hairs standing on end, and his legs are crossed in imitation of the eland's legs. And then, perhaps most important of all, he has beautifully painted cloven hoofs, exactly as the eland's hoofs are painted. So he is in parallel in some way with the dying eland. And as the dying eland releases its potency, so the man is able to absorb this potency and use it, to harness it, to go deeper into trance and perform the tasks that medicine men do. Now, when a medicine man goes into trance, they say that he dies. That is, he goes to the spirit world, as people do when they die. But of course, he comes back again. So we have a dying eland as a metaphor of the dying medicine man placed side by side. The figure on the extreme right has even more hairs standing on end, and its head is very, very similar to the head of the dying eland. And so that is another medicine man who is transformed by the power of the eland. As the medicine man absorbs the eland's so he becomes more and more like an eland himself. So the whole panel is held together by ideas of eland behavior, death, medicine men, trancing postures. And the message of the panel, if one can sum it up like that, is that the eland is the source of the man's power, and the man uses this power to go into trance. It's the experiences of trance that create the whole world, the whole universe, and the metaphors of power and antelope and human beings fused with antelope that is part of that. And a painting like this is something like a Rosetta Stone, because it gives us the clue to what the art is all about, and then it enables us to go on and perhaps, we say, decode or translate other paintings throughout the country.
The paintings begin to come alive when they're looked at not with the attitudes of a Westerner, but through the eyes of the Bushmen. Lewis Williams believes that the medicine men themselves were the artists, who depicted their experiences of the spirit world in moments of reflection after the turmoil of the dance. Study of fine details can suggest more and more complex layers of meaning. This figure, lying as if in trance, is physically linked to the eland around him by a double line of white dots. He is also, curiously, surrounded by fish. But besides death, another way Bushmen describe the sensation of trance is that it is like being underwater, weightlessness, gasping for breath. Now we can understand the puzzling comments of Kling, Orpen's Bushman informant, who talked of men who had died and now lived in rivers. He was simply combining two metaphors for the state of trance. But if it has taken so long for us to begin to decode Bushman rock art, how many Bushmen could have fathomed its complexities?
In the Kalahari today, religious knowledge is freely available to everybody. There's nothing esoteric about it. And after a trance dance, medicine people will recount their experiences to everybody who is prepared to listen, and they all share in this revelation. So we're inclined to think that the paintings which appear in caves like this, where everybody could see them, would have been intelligible to everybody in every detail, very probably, because in Bushman thought, there's very little distinction between the spirit world and the real everyday world, that the two just merge one with the other. The spirits are about, and the paintings are about in the places where they live. So the whole lot comes together in one entity.
Ancient mysteries will continue.
Bushman paintings were an expression of religious beliefs, beliefs which sprang directly from the natural world around them. One of the very last Bushmen of the Drakensberg Mountains referred to his dying race as people of the eland. The advances made in southern Africa have shown just how much archaeologists can make use of anthropology. But can this work offer any insights into the Stone Age paintings of Europe? The answer is maybe, but in a rather unexpected way. Neurologists in America have begun to explore trance and altered states of consciousness, and the visual hallucinations people experience in these states. In the early stages of trance, geometric forms are perceived, such as zigzags, dots, grid forms, and spirals. In the later stages, realistic images appear, combined in surreal ways, seen against the background of geometric forms. The elements that make up these dreamlike scenes originate from memory, so that what a Westerner experiences will differ from that of a trancing Bushman. But the geometric forms seen in the early stages of trance seem to be universal. Known as entoptic forms, they are generated by the central nervous system, and so may be experienced by any human being in an altered state of consciousness anywhere in the world. There are tribes in South and Central America, for example, for whom trance and trance-mediated healing is still a central ritual. Interestingly, when you look at the art of these tribes, entoptic forms are everywhere. These forms also appear in Bushman paintings.
This tracing of a painting shows a man in a trancing posture here, surrounded by entoptic dots and standing on an entoptic zigzag. And then here we can see in the way in which the entoptic forms are very intimately integrated with animal and human forms. This is an eland, and set inside it there is a very closely painted grid form. Another example shows two rain animals which are surrounded by entoptic zigzags. Here it is as though the shaman is seeing the rain animal through a whole haze of entoptic zigzags which is drawn around them like that. Now, the interesting thing about these entoptic forms is that because they are wired into the human nervous system, they are experienced by people everywhere in the world. And it's also true that they would have been experienced by people of the Upper Paleolithic in France some 20 and 30,000 years ago, because their nervous systems were the same as the nervous systems of people today. It's also interesting the way in which these forms and altered states of consciousness can be induced, because sensory deprivation, complete silence, complete darkness, also induces an altered state of consciousness that leads to these visions.
Unlike the open-air shelters of southern Africa, in Europe, paintings are often found deep underground. Here in the cave of El Castillo in northern Spain, I'm about a quarter of a mile from the entrance. All around me here are paintings. Some of them are of animals, but they're mostly abstract geometric forms. Rows of dots, parallel lines, grid shapes. Now, even modern potholers have been known to hallucinate and see entoptic forms when they spent long periods of time in the recesses of caves like this. Could it be then that more than 10,000 years ago, a Paleolithic shaman might have entered here by the dim light of a simple grease lamp and then sat in the silence and the darkness in order to induce an altered state of consciousness and see the visions that he wanted to gain? There are many entoptic-type forms in the European caves. Up to now, they've been seen as a strange anomaly. Often they're combined with images of animals, in the way that they may have been combined in the hallucinations of the artists. Lewis Williams then sees trance as providing the key to Paleolithic paintings. But how do those studying the European art respond to his ideas?
My first reaction was excitement, because I think it's really a breakthrough. Few people are going to believe that it explains all of Paleolithic art, or even the beginning of Paleolithic art and 20,000 years of Paleolithic art. But it may explain, and I think it does explain, some examples which people have been pondering about for a long time.
How much further do you think people are going to get? I mean, in the future, are people going to get much closer to the real meaning of Paleolithic art? Do you see that happening?
All around those caves, inside those caves, there were rites, there were songs, there were dances, there were gestures. All that has disappeared, and we have no way of finding it again. So I don't think we can explain the whole of Paleolithic art, but every 10 years, every generation, we draw nearer it. But it's something, it's an aim which we're always going to pursue, but which we shall never reach.
The enigma of the European cave paintings remains, and it seems too much to hope that we will ever be able to fully understand Paleolithic art. And it's the study of Stone Age cultures in other parts of the world, such as Southern Africa, which has demonstrated just how immensely difficult the task is. For however simple a society might be technologically, it does not then follow that its thought processes and its vision of the world are simple too.